Welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Eugene Chan. We are indeed honored to have one of Hong Kong's most respected business leaders and infrastructure visionaries, Sir Gordon Wu. He is co-founder and chairman of Hopewell Holdings, a major player in real estate, transportation, and hospitality. A Princeton-trained engineer, he helped pioneer landmark projects across Hong Kong, mainland China, and Southeast Asia. Sir Gordon is a former CPPCC member and recipient of numerous global honors, including a British knighthood and a Gold Bohemian Star Medal from the Hong Kong SAR government. This evening, he will share with us his perspectives on how one country, two systems can make Hong Kong great. Sir Gordon, thank you for joining us at Straight Talk.
It's my honor, thank you.
Right, Sir Gordon, I would like to start by thanking you that on behalf of many Hong Kong citizens that you have sort of benefited from your infrastructure work, your projects, and then you not only shaped our city skyline, but also uplifted livelihoods and connected communities, a term that you always use. So let's start by your own profession. I mean, we know that you're an engineer from Princeton. So what inspired that passion and how has that shaped the work that you do afterwards?
Well, I remember I graduated in 1958,
right.
Came back to Hong Kong and really didn't know what I'm going to do. But since I'm a civil engineer, and I thought that I would go into construction and taught myself as an architect and started doing real estate.
Right.
And at that time, I visited mainland China several times, and I really was shocked by how poor China was. Because they have a system where everything is under central planning.
Right.
There's a planning commission who decides, each factory, what you produce and how many products you produce and the quantity you produce. And I say that isn't very good. And also, Mao Zedong's theory is that you make everybody equal and everybody will be equal.
Right.
But they forget that without the production, what you have is equally poor.
Right.
So that all came to change when Deng Xiaoping got into power, 1979. And I say, by golly, if this one changes,
right,
and China will really go into a different phase. So I visited China again and again and saw the need for infrastructure. Because, if we want to modernize, if we want to have production of wealth, several things you need. You need to have transport and you need to have electricity, particularly electricity. So I built a lot of power stations, and I built the network of the Pearl River Delta. Now they call it the Greater Bay Area, the superhighways. And that's my contribution. And I really believe that what China has been successful today is that they keep on building bridges, they keep on building power stations. In 1979, China, the whole country, consumes about a quarter of what United States are consuming. And now they more than double what America is consuming.
Right.
So you can see more and more growth of wealth in China.
Right. So Gordon, when you first started this idea of building power station and then bridges and roads and all that, how receptive were the actual mainland government at that time? Were they?
Well, in the beginning, they were really skeptical. They were worried about capital, the availability or the lack of it, and they were worried about, hey, you people coming in, we really helping it? So I make out a formula and explain to them the whole idea of capital.
Right.
Because, to them, they say that everybody is equal.
Right.
And they have no idea what capital is. But when you look at capital, it's a very important function. Because in order for any economy to move forward, you need several things. the first thing is demand for your products. And how you be able to cater to make your products available to the people who want it. It's called trading.
Right.
And that you need people, you need technology, but you also need capital to make it work. So we have seen, a transition of the holding of capital. The British Commonwealth or the British Empire held the most capital, and then transferred to America for over 100 odd years. They still have the largest capital in whole.
Right.
But Japan has some, Hong Kong has some, and now China is fast growing up to have capital.
Right.
But it's still way below that of America.
Right. So, Sir Gordon, your visionary projects like the Guangshan Expressway and the Hong Kong-Zhuhai Macau Bridge that you championed over like 35 years have really reshaped our region. I mean, you are the only Hong Kong developer honored amongst Shenzhen's top 40 contributors to its rise as Asia's 5th largest GDP city. Definitely a legacy they have created. So what drives this long-term commitment for these sort of transformative infrastructure projects behind you?
Well, I figure that if China economy move up, they won't treat Hong Kong people as class enemies. Remember,
Right.
Mao Zedong was always saying that all people who have money are class enemies. Down with the class enemy.
Right.
So now actually, China is sending more tourists to Hong Kong than we go to visit China. So which is something that we have to depend on it now. Because those tourists coming to Hong Kong is helping our economy.
But some say that the tourists coming now are not as sort of high spending as they used to be. Are you worried about that?
When they are more wealthy, they will spend more. But don't forget, on the per capita basis, their earning is still way below the EU or America standards. But they more than make it up by numbers. So Hong Kong is okay.
So let's come back to the present time. We are now coming off the pandemic and facing new challenges. I'm sure a lot of Hong Kong people will feel that. So we are going our own transformation, as one would say, as China mainland's economy evolves. So you've been sort of a bridge between mainland and Hong Kong for decades. So what is your saying that, how can Hong Kong leverage on sort of, you look at mainland economies now, it's really pivoting on technology or domestic sort of consumption. How can we leverage on that to enhance our global competitiveness for Hong Kong?
Well, one thing very good about Hong Kong, we are fortunate that Deng Xiaoping decided there's a one country, two systems. So Hong Kong is a capitalistic system. And when you look at the trading part, China being the largest producer, and they are also trading on the international scene. But there's no way that the renminbi would be freely traded. Because if that happens, I mean, they can just, those Wall Street people can just go in there and wipe China out. So they got to use some place as an offshore trading platform. And Hong Kong happens to be that.
Right.
So our future in Hong Kong is to serve financial services, like doing the IPOs, doing the bonds, and the trading. And particularly, Hong Kong people are very smart. They have the touch and the feel to do business. I mean, they would go around the world and make deals in business trading.
Right. So, Gordon, when you say financial services is very important, I'm sure all of us will agree. It accounts over like 20% of our GDP, but it only employs like 8% of our workforce. So how are we going to make sure our whole Hong Kong community is having enough jobs and the actual economy is doing better and better?
Well, don't forget it's only 8, but the knock-on effect will employ more people.
Okay.
And so I see that financial services, hospitality, and trading is really important.
Right. So, Sir Gordon, I'm sure one area that we must not to go into is we have all these geopolitical tensions right now, and Hong Kong being the two systems is where we can sort of assist the mainland integrate deeper into the global trade and financial systems. So do you see Hong Kong be able to do that even better than what we are doing today?
I would think so. You see, one thing about Hong Kong people is that Hong Kong people never say die.
Right.
I mean, I've seen from the 1940s, right after the Second World War, and the recovery, remarkable recovery of Hong Kong. You know, in 1945, Hong Kong is only 500,000 people.
Right.
And the population grew by about 1 million people every decade. Now we have 7 million and we're still growing.
Right. So the government's doing the right thing by attracting more talents to Hong Kong.
More talent to Hong Kong. And why we're able to do that is our tax system.
Right.
Our tax system is one of the lowest in this region, and our economy is the most free.
Mm-hmm.
See, you send in money, you send out money, you know, no questions asked.
Right.
So this is very important. And the rule of law here, we adopted the common law system,
mm-hmm.
which is universally accepted in the EU and America and even South America and India.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's take a short break now. But viewers, stay with us. We will be right back. Thank you for staying with us. Sir Gordon Wu, co-founder and chairman of Hopewell Holdings, is sharing his perspectives on how one country, two systems can propel Hong Kong forward. So, Sir Gordon, in the first half, you gave us a very confident background or a basis on how Hong Kong will do well amidst all the recent challenges economically and also we are amongst the geopolitical tensions. So let me ask you, what practical steps can Hong Kong sort of prioritize to build a more resilient and more autonomous financial infrastructure? For example, how can we reduce our reliance on systems like the SWIFT, for example? That some say that if there's a severe tension, we could be in a bit of trouble. How do we do that?
Well, I think there are a lot of tensions, and there are a lot of, small conflicts like, Iran and Israel, and, it's bound to happen. But on the other hand, I think we've got to look at China's policy, particularly after Deng Xiaoping. China basically wanted to do is, okay, we want to improve the lots of our people. And they made some very fundamental changes. Throughout 2,000 years of history, the farmers always bear the brunt of the tax burden. And it was Wen Jiabao who said, okay, the farmers don't pay taxes. Mm-hmm. And that lifts a lot of people, particularly the farming community, out of poverty. Mm-hmm. Well, they've never had it so good in the last 100 years. Of course, it's still very, very low economically compared with EU or America, but it's on the way up, and they are exporting. Their hard work is earning them a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, when you look at the wealth of America, you're talking about multi-trillions of dollars, mm-hmm. whereas China is only maybe 10, 15% of that. But that doesn't matter, because over this 21st century, we're going to see a lot of transfer of the world's wealth coming to China because they have to buy the Chinese products. They have to buy the Chinese services. Mm-hmm. When you look at today, the largest manufacturing center of the world is China. They have the technology, they can produce very good quality goods, and they are producing at the price people can afford.
Right, but what if all the recent tariffs sort of policy from the US, they're definitely targeting China, and even when they sort of negotiate from other countries, there's one of the conditions maybe saying that you can't have business as closely as before with China as well. Will that affect us?
It's going to affect us, but give it a few years, and you'll see that this is probably the dumbest policy that the world has ever seen.
Right.
I mean, it's very simple. Let's say a manufacturer is selling you $100 worth of goods, and their profit may be at best 10%, 15%,
right.
and they're not going to pay an extra 100% in order to sell the product. In other words, they're $100 income. They're not going to put in another $100 and sell that $100. No. So somebody has to pay for it, and that paying ultimately must be the U.S. consumer.
Right.
And this is going to backfire on them very, very badly.
All right.
But give it a couple of years, and you'll see the effects.
Right. So, Sir Gordon, let's talk about Hong Kong's niche in 2025. I mean, a lot of our viewers watch this program because they want to have some insights, and that's the reason why we have invited you here today. We're looking at combining our tradition with what we call transformation of what's happening to the world. It's evolving very quickly. You mentioned in the first half that the strength of common law and tax have really anchored our role as a global financial center. So are these enough to feed our IPOs? And also, what other advantages can we have to keep the global capital anchored in Hong Kong? As you said, money is very important.
Well, money is very difficult. They come in and they go out like tides. But one thing that is attractive is our low tax rate. Our tax structure is there's no capital gain, there's no inheritance tax, and our tax systems are probably one of the most favorable, apart from Monaco.
Not to mention Hong Kong is very safe. I mean, I was recently in London. I must say that even walking down the street, say Oxford Street, you've got to keep looking behind your backs, making sure your phones are not being snatched. Hong Kong's safety is very important.
Hong Kong and mainland China are safe when you walk at night, and Japan the same way too. But I wouldn't be wandering around singly in San Francisco by myself.
Right. Let's talk about, you were saying that our tax and the tax is very important for businesses and also the freedom of travel of capital. So should Hong Kong adopt any more new strategies to attract even more international capital in the future?
The IT industry is very important. So Hong Kong should probably start looking at it. And this is for the young people. First of all, you've got to be trained in this IT business. Now, I'm not one of those people that can be trained. I remember when I was in undergrad in the 50s, University of Pennsylvania is still working on a simple computer the size of a room.
Right.
So I've seen in the last 50, 30 years the advance in that. So our young people should look at the IT and the application aspect of it. Right? And this is the future of Hong Kong. Well, you need to use that to serve the financial services.
Right. And also, yes, I mean, definitely that's something I think Hong Kong is trying to do that, and especially the younger generation. So how can we, when you mentioned we have more IPOs in Hong Kong, and before the show we had a chat as well, you said that there'll be even more IPOs or even bond issuance from Southeast Asia or the rest of the world. So anything else we have to do to attract it, or is coming automatically?
It's coming here because a lot of the economies is on the way up. And one of the important things are capital, or the availability of it, or the lack of it. So this trading of capital, American capital, Saudi Arabia, and the Arabian capital, and the mainland Chinese capital, and they find it is a nice shop here.
Right.
So as long as we can provide all that services.
One more area that recently came to Hong Kong is the International Arbitration Center. But we have a lot of rivalry like Singapore, and they're very aggressive. So how can we strengthen our position as a global arbitration hub for international businesses
It's
disputes?
by performance.
Right.
That if we do this one very fairly, very quickly, and the minimum cost. Minimum cost, quickest time, and a fair arbitration. And I think then you will attract people.
Right. I think you're spot on minimal cost, because it's...
Minimal cost,
yes.
Cost aspect.
Right. And another area that we look at is the Hong Kong people now. We talk about globally, we talk about Hong Kong as a whole, but people. And you mentioned interdisciplinary education to teach our younger generation. So should all the finance students mandatory studying international law, and do we have that talent in Hong Kong?
Oh yes, we have. And not only from Hong Kong itself. When people find the opportunities, you get all sorts of people coming into Hong Kong. Now we have, before, when China first opened up, all the financial institutions, mainly are from UK and US. Now the Chinese entities are coming in here and play a major role now. So there's no lack of talent. They will come from all the corners of the world.
Right. One area that we must sort of tap your brain is that Hong Kong now is facing a huge issue in retail and also the food and beverage industry. I'm sure you have that businesses as well. Do you see this as a transient thing, especially with the closeness of the mainland, or do you think we have to do something?
Well, on the retail side, a lot of people now, they don't go around shopping. Before you go to a shopping center, it's a way of life. And now you say, well, look at the little pad and, this is the thing I want, boom. So the retail business will not be as prosperous as before, but still it will exist.
Right. So, Sir Gordon, I mean, your career, we see that turning vision into steel and concrete reality. So as we conclude, what is your one piece of advice to young Hong Kong, young person aspiring to build the next chapter for Hong Kong? What would you say to them?
My advice to them is study history.
Right.
And it's not only Chinese history, it's world history. What you want is to understand what has happened before. And what's happened before will happen again. And then understand the transfer of capital.
Right.
Before, UK, after the Industrial Revolution, they cornered a lot of wealth. And then it's followed by America. They got over 100 years of accumulation of wealth. Then Japan, the rise of the tiger.
Right.
And then the 4 little tigers, and now China. So all the transfer process that young people has got to understand.
Right.
But the end formula is one thing. You only make money by offering services or products to other people.
Right.
In other words, for the young people, always do something for other people, and the rewards will come.
Right. Thank you, Sir Gordon, for showing us how one country, two systems can have Hong Kong successful. So for our city's strength lies in its unique duality rooted in China, yet open to the world. Hong Kong is that bridge between East and West, tradition and innovation, and stability and ambition. Until next time, I'm Eugene Chan, and thank you for watching Straight Talk.